It is now time for a question period. The Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
Speaker, my question is for the Premier. Premier, you said, quote, "I'm not going to force someone to resign in the face of allegations that I do not believe to be true." Quote. Well, Premier, Pat Sabera's cousin, the former Minister of Finance, once said the following when he was named in a search warrant. He said, "I have no idea as to what the allegations are or the facts on which they're based. My responsibility is to step aside." Premier, why should Pat Sabera not be held to the same standard? Why shouldn't she have to step aside while 2 OPP investigations are ongoing?
Good. Thank you. Premier.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you very much to the interim leader of the opposition for the question, and he knows that I take this matter very seriously. He also knows that Greg Sabera was an elected official, Mr. Speaker, and he was a Minister of the Crown, so he knows that these are very different situations. As I say, I've taken and I do take this matter very seriously. Elections Ontario determined that the allegations against me and the member for Sudbury were baseless, Mr. Speaker. We'll continue to cooperate fully, but I just remind the member opposite that this is an investigation that is not taking place in this legislature. It's an investigation that's taking place outside the legislature, and we will continue to work with the authorities, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Premier, again to the Premier. Premier, your Deputy Premier said, quote, "The Premier will not force the resignation of someone when the allegations against that person are baseless." Now, Premier, I need not remind
Minister of Agriculture, come to order.
Completely contradicts the findings of the Chief Electoral Officer. When a Minister of Premier's office is under police investigation, former Minister Sabera had wise words when he said, "Meanwhile, it's appropriate for me to step aside from my responsibilities while the investigation occurs."
Did the right thing.
Premier, why is it not appropriate for your Deputy Chief of Staff to step aside? The media called her, next to yourself, the most powerful woman in the province of Ontario. She's as important as a cabinet minister and probably makes more decisions than cabinet ministers in your government. So why is it not appropriate that she step aside?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting to hear the commentary from the member opposite, which I think actually reveals more about how he sees government working than it does about how government works, Mr. Speaker, from our perspective. And I want to just remind the member opposite what the Chief Electoral Officer said. The Chief Electoral Officer clearly stated, and I'm quoting, "I am neither deciding to prosecute a matter nor determining anyone's guilt or innocence. Those decisions are respectively for prosecutors and judges." So, Mr. Speaker, the investigations are entirely independent. The Public Prosecution Service of Canada has been retained. We will continue to work with the authorities, Mr. Speaker, but that investigation takes place outside of this House, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Final supplementary.
Again to the Premier. Again, Premier, your Deputy Premier has said that the Premier has demonstrated a new and different and better way dealing with opposition allegations. But the Chief Electoral Officer said that he has found a prima facie case of contravention of the Elections Act, and he sent it on for further process and prosecution. Premier, these are not opposition allegations. These are findings of an independent officer of this legislature. The investigation is not happening outside this legislature. In fact, it's happening just down the hall in your office. Premier, by continuing to stand by Pat Sabera, you're embarrassing the office you hold. You're degrading the reputation of every elected member in this House because people are starting to think this is simply business as usual.
Question?
Speaker, this is Liberal business as usual. Premier, will you finally have Ms. Sabera step aside?
Thank you. Be seated, please. Start the clock. Be seated, please. Thank you. Premier.
Mr. Speaker, well, I've made repeated statements on this matter. I made a statement on Friday. I've answered questions in the House. There's an investigation underway, Mr. Speaker, and I'll continue to cooperate with the process. But that process is entirely independent of government, Mr. Speaker, and it's independent of this House, and the member opposite knows that. And I understand the back and forth of question period. I understand it very well, Mr. Speaker, but I really believe that accusing people of being criminals when there's an investigation going on is wrong, Mr. Speaker, because the electoral officer, just to remind the members opposite, what the electoral officer said is that I am neither deciding to prosecute a matter nor determining anyone's
Order.
guilt or innocence. Those decisions are respectively for prosecutors and judges. So it is entirely inaccurate to say that the elections officer has made a finding in this case, Mr. Speaker. The electoral officer has left that to prosecutors and judges, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.